It began with a text, short, cold, and perfectly timed. 4:43 p.m. Thursday. Family meeting tonight, 8 p.m. Everyone must attend. This is urgent. Dad. I stared at the glowing screen, a bitter smile slowly forming on my lips. Urgent. What an interesting word coming from them. It had been 14 months since my wedding. 14 months since the invitations were sent. 14 months since my phone filled with polite excuses and every member of my family decided I wasn't worth showing up for. My sister Rachel had texted, "Sorry, can't make it. Backyard weddings aren't really our thing." My brother Marcus was even blunter. "Not worth the drive for such a basic ceremony." Mom sent a short, sweetly cruel email. "A casual outdoor wedding just doesn't reflect our family's standards. I hope you understand." And my father, he didn't respond at all. That day, under the warm glow of sunset, I'd said, "I do," in front of 50 guests, friends, colleagues, neighbors, people who chose to be there. We stood beneath white roses and golden string lights draped between oak trees. It was beautiful, it was mine, and not a single blood relative was there to witness it. Now, 14 months later, suddenly there was something urgent. I already knew why. That morning, the Lifestyle Channel aired an episode of Most Spectacular Estates. And guess whose home opened the show? Mine. They showcased every restored room, every hand-carved door frame, every shining inch of my 12-acre lakefront estate. They revealed its 5.5 million value, interviewed me about purchasing it as a distressed property for 1.8 million 3 years earlier, and even aired footage of my wedding. Yes, the backyard one in those very gardens. The segment went viral. By noon, I'd received more messages than I had in the last 3 years combined. Old friends, distant cousins, former classmates suddenly proud. And of course, my family. So I replied simply, "I'll be there." At 7:58 p.m., I turned into my parents' driveway, headlights slicing across their manicured hedges. The garage looked like a luxury dealership. Rachel's Mercedes, Marcus's BMW, even Aunt Linda's Lexus. Funny how urgent family meetings attract full attendance when money's involved. I stepped out in heels that clicked sharply against the stone path, leather briefcase in hand. Mom opened the door before I could knock, her voice coated in honey and guilt. "Victoria, you're here. Everyone's waiting." The living room was already full. Mom, Dad, Rachel and her husband Brad, Marcus and his fiancée Jennifer, Aunt Linda, Uncle George, Cousin Stephanie, all seated in a perfect semicircle like a tribunal. Aunt Linda beamed. "There she is, our TV star. That estate of yours is just breathtaking, dear." I didn't smile. "That's interesting," I said softly. "Last year you told me I'd wasted my savings on a crumbling house in the middle of nowhere." Her grin faltered. Dad's voice cut through the tension. "Sit down, Victoria. We need to talk." "I'll stand," I replied, setting my briefcase on the coffee table. "Your text said this was urgent. Let's hear it." Marcus leaned forward, fake charm dripping from his voice. "We saw the show. The place looks amazing." "Thank you," I said flatly. Dad cleared his throat. 5 million, he repeated slowly. "That's quite an investment for someone who was supposedly living beyond her means." The words hit me with deja vu, the same tone he'd used 2 months before my wedding, while lecturing me about financial irresponsibility. Mom's voice softened, worried and manipulative. "Honey, we just want to be sure you're not in over your head. Surely you took out a massive mortgage. That kind of property would crush anyone your age." "Why would you assume I have debt?" Uncle George snorted. "Because nobody in their 20s owns an estate like that outright. You must be leveraged to the hilt. That's why you had that little wedding, isn't it?" "Tight budget." I almost laughed. "Is that what you think?" Rachel's tone turned falsely kind. "We're not judging, Vic. We just want to help. Brad thinks you should sell before the market turns." Brad nodded eagerly. "I've got a great agent. We could list next week." I lifted a hand, cutting him off, and slowly opened my briefcase. The metallic clasp echoed through the silent room. "Before we continue," I said calmly, "let me ask something simple. Why didn't any of you come to my wedding?" No one spoke. Not a single person met my eyes. "I sent invitations 6 months in advance," I continued. Called each of you personally. Every one of you made an excuse about why my wedding wasn't worth attending. That's not fair, Rachel said quickly. We explained it wasn't special enough. You said it wasn't a real celebration, I replied, that it was too basic. I looked at them one by one. So tell me, what changed between then and now? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. We didn't know. Didn't know what? I snapped. That the rented cottage was actually my estate? That the basic backyard wedding took place in gardens now featured in 3 national magazines? You never told us, Rachel said defensively. I invited you to see it multiple times. Mom said she was too busy. You said it was too far to drive. Marcus didn't even return my call. Dad's jaw tightened. We're not here to discuss the past. This is about your financial situation. My financial situation? I echoed. I placed a document on the table. Crisp, heavy paper. That's the deed. The estate is fully paid off. No mortgage. Uncle George grabbed it, scanning quickly, his face going pale. Free and clear. You actually own it outright? Yes. I laid down another sheet, an appraisal from last month. It's now worth $6.2 million. The show increased the value by $700,000 overnight. Dad's hand trembled slightly. How did you afford this? I worked for it. I pulled out more documents, neat and precise. This is my company, North Star Property Development. We restore historic estates and manage luxury properties. Marcus leaned in. This says your company is worth $23 million. 24.7 as of this quarter. The silence that followed was thick and perfect. My so-called basic wedding, I said quietly, cost $180,000. The flowers alone were $15,000. The catering, a Michelin-starred chef. The music, a string quartet from Carnegie Hall. Rachel's mouth fell open. But you said it was casual. Casual meant intimate, I replied. 50 guests, no pretentious ballroom, not cheap, not basic. Mom's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell us? I did, I said evenly. You just didn't listen. I told you I was restoring a historic estate. You called it an old dump. I said I was starting a business. Dad said I was playing entrepreneur. I invited you to my wedding. You said it wasn't special enough. I unlocked my phone and held up a photo. Me in my Vera Wang gown. Daniel's arm around my waist. Sunlight spilling through the oak trees. White roses, golden light. Aunt Linda gasped. That's your wedding. The basic ceremony you all skipped, I said. I swiped again. Chandeliers, a 7-tier cake, a vintage Rolls-Royce parked by the lake. I didn't hide anything. You just couldn't see past your own arrogance. Dad's voice softened. If we had known. I laughed, a short, sharp sound. That's exactly the problem. You would have come if you knew it was expensive enough. Not because it mattered to me. Mom looked hurt. That's not true. Oh, it's true, I said coldly. Remember Marcus's engagement party? Cheap conference room at the Hampton Inn. Grocery store cake. I flew in from Seattle, brought a $500 gift, and stayed till the end. Marcus flushed. That's different. How? I demanded. Because that was your engagement, while mine didn't deserve 2 hours of your time? Rachel stood flustered. This isn't fair. For what? I asked sharply. For skipping my wedding, for acting superior. You should feel guilty. She shook her head. We didn't know you were successful. And that's my point, I said, my voice rising. I'm your sister. You should support me because you love me, not because you saw me on television. Silence again, the kind that feels like glass about to shatter. Finally, I exhaled and reached back into my briefcase. You want numbers? Fine. I laid out deeds like playing cards. Riverside Property, $3.8 million. Willow Creek Manor, $2.1. Hartley Building, $4.2. Riverside Inn, $1.9. Their eyes widened. I kept going. Garden District Properties, $6.7. Lakefront Cottages, $2.3. Victorian Mansion, $3.4. Uncle George whispered, trying to add them up. That's over 25. No, almost 29 million. I set down the last document, my portfolio statement. Total assets, 52.3 million. Net worth, 44.2 million. Jennifer's voice came out in a stunned whisper. 44 million? Yes, I said simply. And personally, I'm worth about 31. I glanced at my father. Not bad for someone playing entrepreneur, right, Dad? He looked like I'd punched him. I continued, tone calm, almost bored. Next month, I'll be featured on the cover of Forbes, Young Entrepreneurs in Historic Preservation. I snapped my briefcase shut. So why am I here? No one answered. You saw me on TV, I said quietly. You realized I wasn't the failure you assumed, and now you want in. That's not true, Mom started. Don't lie, I said, my voice ice cold. Dad, what's the real reason? He deflated, shoulders sagging. The business is struggling. We need investors. When we saw the show, we thought maybe... How much? I asked flatly. Uncle George answered before Dad could. $500,000 for dealership expansion. And you thought I'd just write a check? Rachel leaned forward, eyes pleading. We made a mistake. We're sorry, but we're family. Family helps each other. I stared at her for a long moment. Her words sounded sincere, but sincerity after fame isn't the same as sincerity when you're invisible. Do you know what Daniel and I did on our wedding night? I said quietly. We walked through those gardens at midnight and he held me while I cried because my family couldn't show up for the most important day of my life. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Daniel's family was there, I said softly. All of them, from 6 different states. His 87-year-old grandmother came with her walker, because that's what family does. I picked up my briefcase. You want to know what else? They didn't ask how much it cost. They didn't analyze whether it was special enough. They just showed up. Victoria, please, Dad said, standing. The $500,000 you need, I replied. That's less than I spent on my wedding, the wedding you skipped. I let it sink in. I could see hope flare in their eyes. I could write that check right now. Hope died. But I won't, because you don't help family. You help family only when it's convenient, when it benefits you. I opened the door. I learned that 14 months ago at my reception, staring at the empty table where you were supposed to be. Please, Mom's voice broke. We're sorry. You're sorry now, I said. Not when you RSVP'd Gabe, no. Not when I called crying the night before. Not for 14 months of silence. I pulled up a photo on my phone and placed it on the table. The empty table at my wedding. 8 empty chairs. A card reading family. If that show had never aired, would we even be having this conversation? Silence. That told me everything. I left as chaos erupted behind me. My phone buzzed. Daniel. How did it go? Me. Exactly as expected. Coming home. Daniel. Making your favorite dinner. I love you. Me. I love you too. As I drove away, messages poured in. Rachel. Please reconsider. Marcus. Can we talk? Mom. You're breaking my heart. Dad. Money has made you cruel. I typed back to Dad, no, money just made you notice me. That's not the same thing. Then I blocked them all and drove to my estate. My beautiful, fully paid, $6.2 million estate, filled with memories of a perfect wedding. Daniel stood on the front steps, backlit by warm light. How was it? He asked. Educational, I said as he pulled me into a hug. I'm proud of you for knowing your worth. Inside, the house smelled like home and fresh flowers. Our dog, Maisie, bounded toward me. Wedding photos lined the walls, quietly telling the truth about that magical day. One final text came from an unknown number. Victoria, this is Aunt Linda. Some of us really do want to make amends. Not for money, just because we miss you. I saved her number and replied, prove it, show up. Not because of what I have, but who I am. When's your next Sunday dinner? This Sunday, 6 p.m. and come alone and I'll be there. That Sunday, Aunt Linda arrived with flowers and a homemade pie. No money requests, just honest conversation and sincere apologies. It was a start. The rest I haven't spoken to since. My company just closed a $12 million hotel renovation. Forbes published a feature. Daniel and I are celebrating our 2nd anniversary in Italy, and I haven't missed them once. Because I learned from that empty wedding table. The people who show up when it doesn't benefit them, those are your real family. Everyone else is just related by blood, and blood is thinner then.